register for our blog, and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's begin with the moron in chief, the white supremacist in chief, the one and only Donald Trump, who, before realizing that the state of Michigan was in a state of emergency due to flooding as a result of dams breaking, before he even knew or paid attention to that, he made this threat against Michigan. On Twitter this morning, he said, breaking, Michigan sends absentee ballots to 7.7 million people ahead of primaries and the general election. This was done illegally and without authorization by a rogue Secretary of State. I will ask to hold up funding to Michigan if they want to go down this voter fraud path. That was at 7:51 this morning. And at 10:29 this morning, he realized, oops, wait a minute. Michigan is actually undergoing some flooding because of, they're in trouble. They have a state of emergency, and maybe I jumped too quickly with my authoritarian ideations. And this is what he said. He said, quote, at 10:29, he said, my team is closely monitoring the flood in central Michigan. Stay safe and listen to all the local officials. Our brave first responders are once again stepping up to serve their fellow citizens. Thank you. We have a moron in the White House who has authoritarian aspirations. We have a white supremacist in the White House who has authoritarian aspirations. We cannot afford 4 more years of Donald Trump. We have a person in the White House who is getting people killed because of his ego, because of his sheer stupidity. I mean, the level, I cannot stress this enough. I have never seen someone as ignorant, not just ignorant, just plain dumb as Donald Trump. Like, this is a testament. Donald Trump is literally a testament to how far a trust fund baby can go, even though they have the IQ of a sloth. He made it all the way to the presidency on hatred and the fact that he got, he's had a lavish life, all of his life. And whether he's a good businessman or not, I mean, we all know that he's not, right? But he always had enough money to make mistakes along the way. Most of us don't have enough money to make a mistake 1 month. Donald Trump has bankrupted multiple companies, and now he's destroying America, and yet he's still being promoted and heralded by the morons on the right. I don't have many words, right? I don't have any fancy way of describing the situation or the scenario, because we are dealing with the idiocracy. We are dealing with the stage in American decline, right? The decline of this empire where ignorance is heralded as a virtue, where stupidity is the norm. Propaganda on the right isn't even necessary because they are propagandizing themselves. They don't need Sean Hannity to stir them up with conspiracy theories. They do it to themselves. And the problem is that we don't have a meaningful opposition party to just step in and wipe the floor with them. We don't, because a party that is in power, that's supposed to be the opposition party, can't seem to find a way to take down the dumbest person that has ever held this office. And I'm not talking about, I don't care about there was presidents. Yeah, there were presidents who could barely read. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not talking about book learning. I'm not talking about what schools they went to, because Donald Trump went to all the schools, being an elite privileged prick can afford you. It's not about that. It's about the sheer level of stupidity that runs through his brain. His brain does not connect. And you couple that, right? You couple that with his megalomania. You couple that with the fact that he believes that this country is here to serve him. He believes that he probably doesn't even know what the 10th Amendment is. Probably has no idea what states' rights are. And Donald Trump is the type of person that when he finds out that he's wrong, he challenges the system and demands that everyone becomes subservient to him, becomes that they genuflect before him, right? Donald Trump, and this is the problem, right? It's not just Donald Trump. It is the people that are around him that continue to support him, that continue to promote him, that continue to do what he says. And it's because there are people in this country who would love nothing more than to turn it into a full-blown dictatorship, a right-wing dictatorship. That is what a right-wing dictatorship that crushes all marginalized groups in any notions of justice. Do you think Stephen Miller for 1 second would not revel at the opportunity to be the second in command to the dictator of this country, crushing all immigrants, crushing all immigration, crushing black people, crushing social justice warriors? And that man is standing right next to Donald Trump, thankfully, with the coronavirus. I don't give a shit. Listen, it's time. It is time out for being civil. It is time out for being politically correct. It is time out for being the bigger person, because we are in a situation where the absolute dumbest person possible has the Machiavellian skill set enough to turn this country into a full-blown right-wing fascistic dictatorship. This is not hyperbole. Okay, I guess I gotta, let me go piece by piece. He has the federal courts. He has the federal courts at his disposal, and he has installed people who absolutely have declared loyalty to him. That was part of the process. He even tried to get James Comey to swear an allegiance to him, an oath to him. Do you not think that he's done the same with all of these people who are on the bench? And I know in the back of your mind, you're saying, yeah, well, the Democrats approved them. I don't give a whoever approved them, all of them got to go. Every single one of them got to go. See, here's a problem that I notice on the left. A lot of people don't like to have criticisms of Donald Trump because that to them feels like it's some kind of indirect support of the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, f*** all of them. Every single person that's responsible for Donald Trump, both Republican and Democrat, every single person that has put this man in power and supports him continuously, all of them, a pox on all of their houses. How incompetent do you have to be for Donald Trump to still have a 51% approval rating? What kind of political party can you be, Democrats, the person who has the absolute, the only person who might be more incoherent than Donald Trump is Joe Biden, and that tells you everything you need to know about politics in America, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Couple all of this. We have the perfect recipe to destroy this country. I'm just going to be honest with you. The recipe for our demise is currently in power. The regime that is in power right now is perfect to destroy us. I mean, you even got former President Barack Obama, who is just wading in as though he's this real cool, laid back, everything is cool, everything's fine. Just make sure you go vote. And I'm like, I'm sorry, bro, but where were you in the lead up to the coronavirus? Didn't you have the intelligence? I'm not talking about thinking capacity. I'm talking about the actual literal intelligence agency's report that said that this was going to be bad. Why did not you step out and say, America, we have to do something. Defend yourselves, protect yourselves, quarantine. Where were you at the beginning of all this? Probably too busy working on Michelle Obama's documentary on Netflix that just keeps playing every time I log into Netflix. I'm like, damn, I don't want to see this. Could you get this shit off my timeline, please? Not interested in it. They're probably too busy working on the Netflix deal. So I don't care who or what part they played in this current regime. The entire regime has to go. The neoconservative war machine and the neoliberal economic machine, it has to go. And how do we get that done? Hell, coronavirus might end up doing it for us because they have successfully blocked off all electoral means of accomplishing anything in this country. We won't get it done through electoral politics no time soon. And at the rate we're going, we have a madman in the White House who is perfectly fine with losing 1 million Americans. And it's not just them. It's also 50% of our electorate, of our voting electorate. 50% of our voting electorate still supports this man. They have lost loved ones. Some of them have died. Their friends have died. And then yet and still, they're willing to go out into this pandemic because they think it's not really going to kill them that much because now it's been flipped. They think it's going to be black people and poor people that die. Look at all of these pieces, man. Look at all these pieces stacked together that shows you just how vulnerable America really is. And I know a lot of people are like, yes, America's coming down. America's going to be destroyed. And some people just are waiting on that. But you know how many people are getting ready to suffer? far beyond America. It won't be just Americans that suffer because of this current regime. And when I say this current regime, always translate that as both parties, both the neoconservative foreign policy imperialism machine and the neoliberal economic machine, the trickle-down economics that both parties participate in. This entire regime has to go. And while we don't have the power to do that, it looks like coronavirus might. Yeah. All right. So yesterday they released a video of a confrontation of Ahmaud Arbery between he and a police officer when Ahmaud Arbery, the 25-year-old who was killed here in Brunswick, Georgia. I say here in Brunswick, Georgia. I'm in Atlanta. Brunswick is way south of us, but still, you get it. They released that video trying to make it seem like, assassinate his character. Simply put, yesterday, Jorge Fitzgibbon from the New York Post went one step further and put an article out discussing a newly released Ahmaud Arbery video shows a 2017 shoplifting arrest. Oh boy, he shoplifted, not like people all across the country of every age, of every ethnicity. I mean, every group shoplifts, but that's not the point. I hate to have to. I simultaneously hate having to point out the logical fallacies of the disingenuous arguments, but it's kind of mandatory. But the real point here is that this is exact. They have no point. They have no intention of dealing fairly. They want the right to kill us with impunity. And the only way they can get that is by vilifying us to no end. And so what they're doing ahead of the trial, don't think this is meaningless. What they're doing is that they are vilifying him before the jury pool could even be brought together. Now, I don't know how trials are happening right now. I don't know if they're going to do virtual trial. I don't know how to, with pandemic, everything, but that's besides the point. The point is that they're trying to muddy the waters as much as they possibly can, just like they did with Michael Brown. Don't you think for one second that this isn't the same playbook they use against Michael Brown? Because I will never forget the 2 weeks after Michael Brown was shot, everybody, from Fox News down to Black Lives Matter, which wasn't even a thing yet at the time, but to activists, they saw it clearly for what it was. What happened with Michael Brown, they saw it clearly for what it was. And what did they do? They put out a video looking like Michael Brown was shoplifting. And all of a sudden, they vilified him so successfully that they didn't even go to trial. That one did not even go to trial. That is the same playbook that they're doing here. So this isn't just about, trying to rub it in or trying to, no, this is part of the defense strategy. Side note, with Michael Brown, it turns out later on that it wasn't any shoplifting. It wasn't strong arm. It was a deal that he had with the guy behind the counter. He had a relationship with the guy behind the counter, but that bit of information was never released to the public until years later. This is the game that they play because they refuse to be accountable for the way white supremacy treats black people in this country. And so the only way they get away with it is by vilifying us, even after they killed us. So it is intentional. The reason I don't like explaining the disingenuousness of it is because they intend on being disingenuous. They intend on engaging in bad faith. They intend on manipulating the facts. They intend on distorting the truth and using propaganda to protect white supremacy. That is what they do. They are the masters of it. They are the masters of half-truths. They are the masters of vilifying victims. And they do so to protect white supremacy from ever being and it's not just white supremacy. It is the power structure in this country. It is the fact that white conservative men in this country have had the reins of power, both politically and economically, the entirety of this country, and any inch, any sliver, any marginal increase in rights for someone else to them feels like oppression. And so they do everything in their power to protect that power structure, no matter who they have to kill, no matter who they have to vilify. It is the standard operating procedure for this country. And it's time for it to end.
I'll just put you on my 3,000 follower Instagram feed, mostly locals.
Hi everyone, I work for Costco and I'm asking this member to put on a mask because that is our company policy. So either wear the mask
And I'm not doing it because I woke up in a free country.
Have a great day.
So you're going to take this cart from me?
Sir, have a great
full
day.
Of stuff.
You are no longer welcome here in our warehouse. You need to leave. Thank you very much.
Here, you put it on, I'll give you my card. He's going to take the card away because he's a pussy little bitch.
Huh.
There he is, walking away with all my stuff. There he goes. Because I'm not a fucking sheep.
Man, oh man, oh man. He's not a sheep. That is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is where we are in this country. If you take the slightest precautions on behalf of other people, because, you know, those surgical masks, they really only protect people from you. Right? They don't protect you as much as they protect people from you. But if you have, if there's mutual sharing of those masks, then everybody's pretty much 95% protected. But that's too much for conservatives. This guy is exactly what you thought he would be. If you imagine in your mind, if you would, someone shopping at Costco who is a conservative man who's trying to show off for his Instagram followers that he's a badass, that he's not an effing sheep, that he is, that he woke up in a free country. Like, imagine in your mind what this motherfucker looks like. Just take a second and think about it, right? You got the picture. That's exactly what it looks like. And guess what he's wearing? He's wearing the all-time favorite shades of the conservatives. You know, those shades that the guys. I love playing poker, so I'm not trying to insult the poker players, but you know, when those middle-aged white men go to the poker table, they put on the same shades. You know what I mean? He's wearing those same exact shades. Talking about, I woke up in a free country. Freedom to these morons is the ability to infringe on everyone else's freedoms and liberties. That's how that's the privilege that these people have had all of in their minds, right? They haven't had it literally in their lifetimes, but they dream of a time in American history when they had the right to do and say whatever they wanted to with impunity. That's what they want to get back to. All the company was asking them to do was to put on a goddamn mask to not get anyone affected and not get the food infected, but that's too much to ask, and that's an infringement on their liberties. They literally want the right to harm other people. Because if you ask them to not harm other people by taking the mildest of inconveniences, putting on a mask that probably could end up saving their lives as well, well, that's an infringement on my liberties. Oh boy, America is what America is. I don't know what to tell you folks, other than it's time for the Patron party.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Here we go. At this point in every single episode, we take the minute to thank all of our newest patrons, without whom this show is entirely impossible. And it doesn't matter how many new patrons we get, we're always going to party. So, Stephen C., this patron party is for you and you alone because you're the only patron. What? Everybody bop, yo. But always, as always, I'm grateful to every patron, new, old, and former. I'm thankful to every single one of you. Wait, let me shut up. Bop your head for a second. Let's go. There we go. Y'all know how much I appreciate you. Here we go. You too can become a part of this. No, for real. You can become a patron. Go to patreon.com/the BPD Show. You get twice the content, none of the ads like you're going to get somewhere about right in here.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. So Joe Rogan of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast has signed a $100 million deal to exclusively release his podcast on Spotify. Holy shit. I mean, $100 million. That's elite money. That is top 1% money. Like, he's not a billionaire, but Joe Rogan is going to be a billionaire before this is said and done. Like, if you can't convert $100 million for a podcast into $1 billion, then something's wrong with you. But I digress. I mentioned that for reasons that I will explain later in terms of him on his way to becoming a billionaire. The thing about the podcast getting so much money from Spotify are a lot of concerns. They're like, hey, you had Kendrick Lamar. He had 1.5 billion streams, and he only got like $1 million off of that because of the relationship that Spotify has with the artist. It is pennies. Like, not even pennies. Literally, not pennies. It's like what, 0.0004 cents. So it's really like it's really obscene what they don't pay artists, and now a lot of people are concerned because now they're opening up the checkbook and saying, "Hey, Joe Rogan, come over here and get all this money." One explanation for that I've seen prevalent online right now is that, Joe Rogan does what is it, 3 times a week? I don't know how often it comes on. I don't really watch it. I watch clips on YouTube whenever, every now and then when he says something good, and then I have to cut it right off because every time he says something good, he turns around and says 2 things that are dumb. But the things that he said are good are pretty funny. So you gotta take the good with the bad, or just don't listen to him at all. But apparently a whole lot of motherfuckers are listening to him. $100 million, ladies and gentlemen, to do a podcast. But anyway, people who are explaining, I'm an idiot. People who are explaining why this is a good deal and this is acceptable, comparable rather to what artists don't get paid. They explain it like this. They say, well, he streams like 3 times a week for 3 hours or something, whatever. He does like 9 hours of content a week, and he gets like 2 million people who listen to every single episode that he puts out. And so they say the time differential is just like, he's putting in way more time than these artists put in. And that's not true in terms of the time that's put in, because to get behind the microphone and just talk shit, honestly, it is not. You don't put in the same effort as a musician. You don't, because I am a musician, or at least I used to be a musician, and I have produced albums, and I know how much time goes into it, right? And it's a totally different beast. So you can't really compare apples to apples there. And furthermore, the Spotify doesn't make their money based on how long people listen, except any correlation they may have between how long a person listens to their platform and how many subscribers they maintain every month, right? You have to dig in a little deeper. You can't just say, people listen to this longer, therefore it's more valuable. No, you really have to go to the next layer and say, no, these many people kept their subscription because of this content. That's the way you have to look at it. So I don't know if there's if that's actually a valid argument, even though it may sound like a really good argument that, Joe Rogan creates far more content. It's not the same quality content, right? Because here's a difference. Like, I will go on Spotify and listen to albums that were recorded 40 years ago and listen to it in its entirety, right? You're not going to go back and listen to Joe Rogan Experience from even a week ago, or okay, a week ago you would. That's not fair. Okay. But you're not going to go 3 years ago or 10 years ago and say, I got an itch for that particular episode 5,672. I got to go listen to that. Nah, man, I will go back and listen to Al Green from 30 years ago, I guess I'm getting older, 35 years ago. So it's a qualitative difference. And the fact remains is that Spotify's model, right? This is the main thing. Like, people who try to justify people who try to justify Joe Rogan getting $100 million based on Spotify's model insulates Spotify's model. They're stealing money out of the mouths of artists, bottom line. And they're redistributing it to Joe Rogan. $100 million for a podcast. Can I get like 5 new patrons today? Can we do that? 5 new patrons by the end of the day. Shit, man. All right. One last story. If you need any further indication of how far in decline the American empire has gone, and the state of media, or the role that media plays and the propaganda machine plays in the destruction of this country. Side note, I got to go on a tangent real quick before I even tell you about this story. It is amazing. It is amazing how self-destructive capitalism is, but it's also amazing how self-destructive America is. We engage in the very same practices that they feel are best practices for capitalism are destructive, right? Whether or not they want to spend some dollars and their profit margins are going to be a little less, but their employees won't die of COVID-19, right? That's a decision that apparently some companies can't make. Apparently they're making the wrong choice in that case. Similarly, this country, there's never a time when you don't have people who are willing to do things that are destructive to this country, and they do so in the name of money and because of hyperpartisanship. This story coming up is case in point. Republicans seek, quote, extremely pro-Trump doctors to back coronavirus plans on TV. Let me read a little bit of this for you from the Daily News. Not exactly the very best outlet, but here's a story based on a report. It's pretty decent reporting. Republican political operatives are looking for medical doctors who are willing to serve as mouthpieces for President Trump's push to reopen America's economy as fast as possible, even as coronavirus rages. The plan to recruit telegenic, that's funny, telegenic, physicians willing to agree with Trump's strategy was unveiled last week in a secret strategy session between the Trump re-election campaign, and a conservative political group. A leaked recording of the hour-long call was obtained by the Center for Media and Democracy, a progressive watchdog group. The push comes as Trump pointedly sidelines Dr. Anthony Fauci, the country's most prominent pandemic expert. Fauci angered Trump by publicly warning that COVID-19 will kill and sicken many more Americans if the nation abandons social distancing and stay-at-home restrictions too quickly. So, in order to help the president get reelected, they're going to put people on TV that will help Americans feel more comfortable about going back out in this pandemic, catching the pandemic, and a percentage of them dying, destabilizing our country even more than the economic crisis that we're in, right? These steps, these actions would definitively undermine our national security. And I'm using that language specifically because that's language that they understand, right? Even though they don't give a shit about national security, all they really care about is their immediate power. That's it. That's the point. I don't even have to go down the rest of that thought process. Here's what it is. For the accumulation of immediate power and immediate wealth, they sacrifice the future of their power and the future of their wealth. Capitalism does it to itself. Hyperpartisanship in this country does it to itself. It's not just the Republican Party. You see the same goddamn thing with the Democratic Party. They've put up Sleepy Joe to go up against this madman in the White House who is an authoritarian in training. He's just so dumb that he can't effectively pull it off. But he would if he could. That's the level that we're playing at here. And yet, in hopes of protecting their immediate hold and grip on power, they make decisions that undermine the country in general and their power in the future. Basically, too long didn't read. All they care about is the immediate power and the immediate money at the expense of long-term power and the expense of long-term money. Only difference here would be the Republican Party. They are really good at enshrining their long-term power. But their long-term power, the GOP's long-term power, has come at the expense of the stability of this country. You cannot look at the state of this country and think that with all the pieces that are in play, look at all the pieces of the puzzle that are in play. You have hyperpartisanship to a level that we have never seen. You have propagandization so effective that the people propagandize themselves now. They don't need media to do it. They do it to themselves. You have a virus that is exposing every division in this country, class division, racial divisions, health disparities. I mean, everything. Well, that's my music. I will pick this up for patrons. Patreon.com/The BPD Show. I'm going to continue that conversation with a couple of more stories after the music. Patrons, don't go anywhere. Everyone else, if you want access, go to Patreon. If not, I will see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.